autumn is finally upon us. Not that you can tell because I live in the south of France and it is still very much like 30 degrees outside, sunny. It's even a little bit too hot for this jumper, but we are fully embracing it because mentally it is autumn. I've tried to make my background a little bit more festive. I don't know if I've really succeeded because, as I say, it is quite a sunny day today. The lighting is probably going to change quite a bit throughout this video, but I'm very excited to share some autumn slash Halloween book recommendations. I'm going to go through the books that I'm currently reading, books that I want to read this year, and books that I would recommend anyway. In general, some probably quite obvious, but that's what I'm going to do today. If you hear any noise in the background, Jack is doing things, so you might be able to hear him. Sorry about that. But yeah, let's jump right in because I'm very excited. Ooh, I'm a little bit hot. I've got a hot chocolate. I would pretend that it's a coffee, but it's not. It's a hot chocolate. All I can dream of is a pumpkin mug. That would make me the happiest woman on earth. And I can't find one. You'd think that that's like such a basic idea and that it would be so easy to find. It isn't, my friends. It isn't. So this mug will have to do. She's still pretty, she's still cute, she's just not really what I was envisioning. I thought it would be a good place to start if I showed you what I'm currently reading at the moment. I've been on quite a Harry Potter kick. I am not a Potterhead. I'm not a very big Harry Potter fan, but I still really love it because I watched the films growing up. I feel like I grew up with both the films, the books, and the actors, and so it makes me feel very nostalgic. I do watch the first 3 films every single year, but the 3 first ones are the 3 best ones, if I'm being honest. I haven't watched the other ones after that in so long though, and I haven't read the books since I was probably around 12, but this year I got the urge to pick up the books again and to read those. I love these editions, they're so sweet. I really love these. And I've read these first 2 already this month and they are perfect. They're so quick to go through. I mean, everybody knows Harry Potter and most people have probably read Harry Potter by now. And if you haven't read Harry Potter, then you're most likely never going to because you're probably just not interested and it's not your thing, and that is completely fine. But if you do like Harry Potter and you haven't read the books in a while or you've never read the books, honestly I recommend picking them up because they're so easy to go through, they're so fun, they're light-hearted, they're wholesome, it's got the found family feelings, you get so much more development from the characters, you get a lot more from the Weasley family, you even get Harry Potter when he goes, I think it's in the second book, yeah, in the second book, he actually spends like a summer with them, and you just get so much more from the books. So if you really, really love the films, I 100% recommend reading the books. The film adaptations are incredible, and there are a lot of scenes that are going to be incredibly similar, but I feel like you just get so much more from the books, and it was just perfect. The last couple of weeks I was thinking about the books the whole day, and I would get home and be so excited to get up into bed and read a chapter before going to sleep. So yeah, I have been really enjoying it, and it's just sweet and cozy and comforting. So 100% recommend picking these up. I like the copy, but I don't like the fact that it's a hardback. I hate reading hardbacks, but I really want to continue the series because I've just been enjoying it so much. So I think I'm gonna read it anyway, even though I don't like the hardback copy. It's something that I'm going to be, well, I'm currently reading this one at the moment. Yeah, I should have said before, I'm currently reading 3 different books. My audiobook is also a reread. I've been rereading books a lot this year. I haven't had a very good reading year, and so I feel like I've just sort of had to fall back on books that I know I'm going to enjoy. And I've sort of had like an itch, like a need? I don't know. I've just had this desire to reread Home Before Dark by Riley Sager, which I think I read 2 years ago now. Objectively, it's not a good book. I feel like its main weakness is the main character who just doesn't ring true at all. Apparently it's like this common thing where the author is very bad at writing female characters. I don't know why he insists on doing it. But it is the only book by him that I have enjoyed so far, and I remember it being perfect for this time because it's a haunted house. So what happens in Home Before Dark? Our main character and her family move into this big old mansion when she is just 5 years old. And they only remain in this big old mansion for, I think it's 20 days, before suddenly upping and moving and leaving. And the reason behind it is very mysterious. The father, to explain why they suddenly leave the property, says that it is because the place is haunted. This gets retold in the news and then it sort of gains a bit of popularity. And the father is a writer, so he then goes on to actually write this book about their time in this house. And it gains a lot of notoriety. It becomes this really big deal. Everyone knows about this family, everyone knows about this house. A lot of people have sort of read this book internationally. I'm sorry that my camera's not focusing, let's give it a minute. So a lot of people have heard about this book and have read it, and it's gotten fame internationally. And so it's played a very big role in the main character's life growing up. And the book starts with our main character 25 years later, and her father has just passed away. This literally happens in the first chapter, so it is not a spoiler. And she finds out that he still owns the house and that he has left it to her, which is a big shock. She didn't know this. She decides to go to the house to sort of renovate it, but also to find some answers to questions that she has, because growing up, they would never tell her the truth behind why they left the house. Her father always claimed that the story was true, and that there really were ghosts and that's why they left. And her mother just refuses to talk about it, and it's just like this taboo subject in the house. But it's played such a big role in her life that she obviously has a lot of questions. And so that's that book. It very much plays on, is it paranormal or is there a different, perfectly logical reason for them leaving the house? And I feel like it gives you all of the sort of vibes and feelings that you want. Obviously it's like a haunted house, but there's also like a little mystery element and it's very eerie. So that aspect I really liked about it, and I feel like it had a lot of potential. It's just the main character that is definitely the biggest weakness, but I'd still recommend. I thought it was really fun, and the ending definitely made me feel a bit like, what just happened? So, and I would recommend you giving that a go if ghosts are your thing. And the third book that I'm currently reading is In My Dreams I Hold a Knife by Ashley Winstead, which I think this is fairly recent. I might be a little bit late to this one, but it's a fairly went slightly Irish there. It's a fairly recent release. It's her debut novel, and I am intrigued. It's part of the dark academia sort of genre. Think Secret History, If We Were Villains, all of that kind of thing. It's definitely got the dark academia themes, where it's a group of sort of elitist friends that go to this very prestigious university, and some sort of murder happens. That's usually what happens in dark academia. I'm only 56 pages in and I'm enjoying it. I feel like the pace is quite good, and I'm intrigued. I'm a little bit worried that it isn't going to be anything new. I feel like it's going to be something that we've already seen done before, and that it's just sort of going to be a repeat of the Secret History, but that's okay. Even if that is the case, I feel like I'll still enjoy it. There's a reason why it's so successful and why people like it so much. So even if it is sort of a repeat of the Secret History, I don't mind. I'm excited to read it. It's about these 6 friends. They went to university together and one of them never left university. Dun dun dun. We are however many years later, I think it's like 20 years later maybe, I'm not sure. But they have a college, is college the right word? Yes, a college reunion, and the past is sort of dragged up, and you, I'm guessing, sort of slowly figure out what happened with this murder. And yeah, that is In My Dreams I Hold a Knife. Alright, we have quite the pile of books to go through, so I might not take too much time with some of them, because otherwise we will be here all day, and that's not the aim. First book on this pile of books that I have is Halloween Party by Agatha Christie. I loved Hercule Poirot growing up, the show with David Suchet. David Suchet will always be the real Poirot for me. There is no other Poirot. No one can do Poirot like David Suchet did. I loved watching those growing up. I used to watch them with my mum. I remember she used to always sort of have it on in the background when she was cooking, or we'd watch it in the evening, and it just reminds me of being very cozy, and it reminds me of being at home and feeling safe, and, you know, in winter having the fire going, and mum, there would be like beautiful smells coming from the kitchen because mum would be cooking, and I would have Poirot on the TV, and I loved it. It was just very, very comforting. And so this was my favourite Hercule Poirot mystery. I really, really loved it. It's a little bit dark in this particular one, because I think she's 13. I think it's a 13-year-old who is murdered, which is a bit it's a bit dark, especially seeing as when I was watching this I was probably like 12. So a bit dark, a bit somber, a bit macabre. I really loved it because obviously the murder takes place during this Halloween party, and it included one of my all-time favourite characters in Hercule Poirot, which I can't remember her name, hang on. Ariadne Oliver. I loved her. She was one of my all-time favourite characters, and I loved any episode that had her in it. So the fact that she was in it, and then the fact that it takes place at a very Halloween-y period. Chef's kiss. What more could I want? I'm really looking forward to reading it. I don't think I've ever read the book, so I'm very, very excited. It has everything you could possibly want. There's murder, it's cozy, there's Ariadne Oliver in it. I mean, the murder is literally that this 13-year-old girl is drowned whilst bobbing for apples. I can't give you a more on-theme recommendation than this. This one I discovered last year, and it was the best discovery I've ever made. This is Small Spaces by Catherine Arden, which I read for the first time last year. I can't remember how I found out about it. I think I was just sort of looking for Halloween recommendations, and then this one popped up. And it is a... searching for the term. Clearly not great at this. That's it. It's a middle grade book. It is definitely for children, but it's so creepy. I would have found this terrifying if I had read this when I was like 10 or whatever age you're... yeah, ages 10 and up. If I'd read this when I was 10, I would be traumatized. It's genuinely really, really creepy. Our main character, you know what, I can't even really remember that much what happens in it, but I remember that it was creepy. Our main character's mother's passed away, and so she's sort of dealing with that grief, and that theme plays a really big part in the book. And you know, it's quite deep. You know, there are very important subjects that are sort of explored in this book, such as grief. Yeah, our main character is in school. I think she finds a book or something, and it's quite a creepy book, and she does a lot of reading, which felt perfect because she reads on these really cozy, misty, rainy days, and she's very relatable because she'll be in bed and she doesn't want to go to school because she's reading her book in bed, and she just wants to stay in bed and read all day, and I'm like, same. She ends up going on this pretty terrifying adventure for a young girl, and that's all I'm gonna really say, but it was great. It has very creepy scarecrows, it has cornfields, it has pumpkins, it has mist, rain, a very creepy bus driver, and that's all I'm gonna say on that. I also read the second book, and the second book is just not as good as the first one. Also, look at this cover. It was perfect. Couldn't recommend it more, really. All right, next one. This is a classic, but it's a goodie. The Woman in Black. The Woman in Black? Yes. By Susan Hill. I read this when I was fairly young. I'm gonna guess between 12 and 13, I'm gonna guess. And then once I'd read this book, I went on a Susan Hill kick, and I remember my mum just had to keep buying these Susan Hill books for me. So I've read, I would say, the majority of her books, but none of them are as good as this one. This one is just your classic ghost story, and it's a classic for a reason. It just works. Do not watch the film with Daniel Radcliffe. That absolute catastrophe. This is about Arthur Kipps, a junior solicitor who has to go and stay in this very big, creepy, isolated house. The house belonged to this recently departed woman, and he has to go to the house to sort of get her affairs in order, so he has to go like through her paperwork and, you know, solicitor stuff. He goes alone to this house, and it's out in the marshes, and there's just this one singular path to get there, and you can't travel the path all the time because the tides rise or something, so it's like incredibly dangerous. If you wander off the path, you will most likely die, so it's a difficult place to access. You can imagine that he gets trapped in this house, and it's very creepy, and he can't get away. He has to like wait till the next day so that he can leave. And yeah, he just, you know, he gets to a house and it's creepy. There are noises, he's hearing things, and that's all I'm gonna really say about that. He finds out a little bit more about the history of the house, and it's great. It's very, very short. I've read this probably 7 or 8 times now, and I would highly recommend if you're looking for a very quick ghost story. I think reading it now, it isn't as scary as the first time I read it, but it still gives you the vibes that you're looking for. All right, moving on. I can't remember if it was recording before or not, so I'm just gonna repeat myself, but the next book is Silent Companions by Laura Pichel. I'm guessing that's how you pronounce her name. I could be very wrong. I apologize if that is the case. I don't remember much about this book because I saw it months and months and months ago, and I got so excited about it, and I really wanted to read it. Like, it really sold it. The blurb or whatever it was that I saw really sold it to me. And then I found it this summer in a secondhand bookstore. I just can't remember that much about it, but I'm gonna give you a very vague rundown on what this is about. So it's about our main character Elsie, who just married, and then her husband died already after a very short period of time. They've been married for like a hot minute, and then he dies. And she is pregnant. So she goes out to sort of see out her pregnancy at her late husband's estate, and it's this big manor. I don't know what it's called. Let's have a look. The Bridge, apparently. It's giving me sort of Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier, in the sense that everyone at the house is very hostile and distant towards her, and she doesn't feel very welcome. She's staying in a place that she doesn't know. She doesn't have her husband with her anymore. She's pregnant, which is gonna mess your hormones up anyway. And then creepy things start happening, apparently. There are like these little figurines, I think, or I think she gets obsessed with this figurine or something. I'm not sure. I can't remember clearly. No, it's a haunted mansion style type of book. Again, it's just creepy things happen, there are noises, I think the figurines move. That's all I'm gonna say on that. That was a terrible, terrible description of that book. And if you decide to read that book based on what I just told you, I'd be very surprised. You might be better just going and looking up online and looking at other people's reviews of it, because clearly I don't really know much about it. But the next one is The Witch Haven by Sasha Payton Smith. This one is about our main character. Let's see what her name is. I think it's like Frances. What's your name, love? Frances. I'm doing terribly. I'm doing a terrible job at this already. Let's try again. So this one's about Frances, whose brother died a few months prior in mysterious sort of circumstances. And we join her at the beginning of the book after she has accidentally murdered someone. She's committed a little oopsie. She's made a mistake. It happens. So she's not doing so good. She's a little bit, you know, she's worried. She's like, murdered someone. Not great for my future. Bearing in mind this takes place in 1900s in New York, and essentially she accidentally commits this murder and then she is whisked away by these mysterious characters and goes essentially to a witch school, where she is taught how to be a witch and to do magic and all of these other things. And I believe there's sort of like this big enemy and she has to fight against this big enemy, and that's what happens. I really can't do a better job at describing it than that, but hopefully it sort of gives you an idea and maybe you're now intrigued to go and check it out and give it a try. That's the best I can do for this one, I think. We should move on. This one, I just happened to see this when I was like scrolling through Amazon looking at sort of different books that were recommended, and I saw this one, which is The Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches by Sangyu Mandana. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. I'm sorry if I'm not. Firstly, before I even say anything, let's check out the cover for this one because it's gorgeous. The cover for this one is gorgeous. I really, really, really like it. And then I sort of read the blurb, and it's sort of giving me The House in the Cerulean Sea by TJ or KJ? TJ Klune. TJ Klune? KJ Klune. I think it's TJ Klune. In the sense that an outsider goes to what I believe is an orphanage. Again, I'm doing this completely from memory. It's giving me found family vibes, it's giving me romance vibes, it's giving me wholesome, it's giving me sweet, it's giving me witchy vibes. I'm hoping that I'm gonna love it as much as I loved The House in the Cerulean Sea. I've said that like 1,000 times now. Very repetitive, very annoying. I apologize. The main character, her name is Mika Moon. She has magic, but she's always had to hide it because apparently Britain doesn't like that. Gotta love the British. Is invited to travel to the remote and mysterious Nowhere House to teach 3 young witches how to control their magic. And so that's what she does. She goes and she teaches these 3 young girls some magic. She forms some sort of romantic relationship with, what's his name? Jamie, who is the prickly librarian of Nowhere House, and he's apparently very protective over the children, so I'm guessing there's a little bit of tension, and then things evolve, and that's what this is about. So there you go. Right, the next one, and this is the last one out of the books that I am planning on rereading. That is The X Hex by Erin Sterling. I've already read this. I think I read it last year. I listened to the audiobook, and it was a very big buzz at that time. It had a lot of hype behind it. Everyone was recommending it left and right. I was just getting into rom-coms at this point, so I wasn't really a part of that crowd, but I did love autumn vibes, Halloween, and I was just getting into rom-coms, and so this was sold to me as a mixture of those two things, a perfect blend of those two things, and it sounded amazing. The first chapter is the best out of the whole book. I'm not gonna lie. The first chapter is amazing. It really gives you those sort of 90s rom-com feels, but with witches. It's these two teenage witches, I think they're cousins, and one of them is heartbroken because of a boy and a breakup. They're hanging out together, she's being comforted by her cousin, she's having a bath, they're drinking vodka, and she, this sounds ridiculous, but I swear it's so much fun. She curses her ex. Years and years later, when they are reunited, she finds out that actually she may have succeeded in cursing him. And so it's sort of about her trying to fix that little mistake. It has ghouls, it has a talking cat, it has a sort of like Halloween shop that her auntie owns. It's got pumpkins, it's got, you know, the leaves, it's got vampires, it's got a haunted mansion, it's got all of the right smells. It's just got everything that represents Halloween and autumn. It's just all put into this one book, and that was what I most enjoyed about it. I still thought that the romance was fun, it was fine, I enjoyed that part of it. Objectively, again, I don't think that this is a good book, and the reason for that is because I think that what would have made this book so good, there wasn't enough of it. Those moments where she's in her really cozy little shop with her family and there's the cat that talks and all of that, those moments are so great and so enjoyable, but there aren't enough of them. There's instead a lot of my mum's gonna watch this. There's a lot of smut. There's a lot of it, which is not my thing. I feel very uncomfortable. I'm not a very big romance reader anyway, and the only thing that I kind of really enjoy about the romance is the banter, the leading up to it, the yearning, and seeing two individuals form like an actual meaningful relationship. I'm not that interested once they actually get together and there's all the smexy scenes. And there's a lot of that in here. Oh, and the again, my mum is gonna watch this, but the dirty talk. Oh, it was horrible. I hated that part. I felt so uncomfortable, but I still feel like it was like I remember having fun reading it, and so I wanted to reread it again this year, and I'll just push through the awkward moments. I might skip a few pages because it happens a lot. There's also like this thing that happens, obviously because otherwise nothing would happen in the story, so there's this other thing that happens, and it's supposed to be this really, really big deal, but they sort of just gloss over it at one point, and it almost takes a backseat and is put on hold, and they don't really do anything about it for a while, and then all of a sudden right at the end it's as if the author sort of remembers that there's this other thing that needs to be resolved, and she's kind of like, okay, and so all of a sudden at the end it moves very, very quickly, and then it's resolved quite quickly. So there was that also was quite a big weakness for the book, but as I say, it was just fun. It's silly, it's fun, it's autumny, so I'm gonna reread it, and I would recommend to anyone else who is ready to sort of go into it with a grain of salt and without taking it too seriously. I think you could enjoy this. My battery is flashing! I might quickly charge it for like 2 minutes. Okay, I'll be back, I will return. So it's a little while later. Listen. Battery gave up on me, so I charged the battery for a little while. Jack and I have now had our lunch, and I thought I would quickly film this little clip as an outro for the video, even though it is like an hour later now. I just wanted to give like a couple of recommendations. Hopefully someone will have found an idea for their next book. Thanks to these recommendations, and if not, I had loads of fun just talking about books that I enjoy, talking about books that I am excited to read. But yeah, if you watched the whole video, thank you. I hope you enjoyed it. And maybe I'll do more little videos like this. I definitely didn't talk about all of the books that I could recommend for Halloween / autumn. I feel like I have quite a few other ideas that could work perfectly well for this video. Oh, it is sunny, which is not the vibe. So I am going to be a little gremlin and I am going to close the shutters and I am probably going to watch Hocus Pocus because it's a classic and it is perfect for this time of year. I don't know if it was interesting, don't know if I did a very good job at explaining these books, but hopefully I did. There you go, I will see you probably soon. Alright, ciao, bye, happy Halloween.